The Nexari ambassador Xylith stood in the United Earth Defense Force headquarters, his crystalline skin refracting light in waves of blue and purple. His eyes, like polished opals, scanned the human military equipment with poorly concealed disdain. Behind him, his entourage of sleek, biomechanical warriors shifted restlessly, their advanced armor systems humming with quiet energy. Captain Marcus Harrison watched the alien delegation, his weathered face remaining neutral despite the obvious condescension. At 45, Harrison had spent 2 decades in the UEDF, and he'd never seen anything quite like these beings. Their technology seemed to defy physics itself, armor that adapted like living tissue, weapons that manipulated gravity, ships that moved like liquid metal through space. "Your equipment," Xylith began, his universal translator giving his words an artificial smoothness. "It seems rather historical. Do you humans truly defend your territories with such primitive tools?" Harrison's second-in-command, Lieutenant Jun Park, tensed beside him. Their M820 battle rifles and Mark VII combat suits might look basic compared to the Nexari's flowing, organic tech, but they had proven themselves in countless conflicts. "We prefer reliability over flash, Ambassador," Harrison replied evenly. "Our gear gets the job done." Xylith made a sound like crystals chiming, their equivalent of laughter. "Indeed. Well, we appreciate your world's enthusiasm for joining the Galactic Council. However, perhaps it would be best if we handled any serious military matters, for your own protection, of course." Before Harrison could respond, an emergency signal blared through the facility. Lieutenant Park's handheld computer lit up with urgent data. "Sir, we're getting distress calls from the Ceres mining colony. Unknown hostile forces have breached their defenses." Xylith's crystalline form shifted colors, showing concern. "The Ravagers. They've been growing bold lately, attacking outlying settlements. We should dispatch a Nexari response fleet." "No time," Harrison cut in, checking his own tactical display. "The colony will be overrun before your ships arrive. Lieutenant Park, get Strike Team Delta suited up. We launch in 15 minutes. The Nexari ambassador's color shifted to deep purple shock or possibly offense. "Captain, you can't be serious. The Ravagers are cybernetic berserkers. Their combat systems are nearly on par with our own. Your antiquated equipment would be useless against them." Harrison was already moving, his voice firm. "Then I suggest you watch and learn, Ambassador. Lieutenant Park, signal the Thunderhawk for immediate deployment." Within minutes, Harrison led his team of 12 through the launch bay. Their Mark VII suits might look clunky compared to the Nexari's living armor, but each one was the product of centuries of human warfare experience. No fancy biocircuits or quantum stabilizers, just reinforced titanium alloy, practical joint servos, and backup systems for the backup systems. The Thunderhawk, their rapid response shuttle, embodied the same philosophy. Its angular frame and thick armor plating wouldn't win any beauty contests, but it could take a beating and keep flying. As they boarded, Harrison caught sight of Xylith and his entourage watching from the observation deck, their crystalline faces showing various shades of what he assumed was pity or amusement. "They think we're going to our deaths," Park muttered over their secure comm channel as they strapped in. Harrison checked his rifle's magnetic acceleration coils, simple, reliable technology that could punch through most armor. Then they're in for an education. The Thunderhawk broke atmosphere in record time, its conventional engines burning hot and clean. As they approached Ceres, the situation became clear. 3 Ravager ships had surrounded the mining colony, their sleek forms resembling metallic predators. Energy weapons carved into the colony's outer defenses, while cybernetically enhanced warriors breached the inner sections. "Those defense shields won't hold much longer," technical specialist Raj Patel reported from his station. "Colony's got maybe 10 minutes before total failure." Harrison stood, grabbing one of the overhead rails as turbulence rocked the shuttle. "Remember your training. Their tech might be fancy, but they've forgotten the basics. Park, Patel, Rodriguez, you're with me on point. The rest of you know your positions. Standard breach and clear, watch your corners, and remember." "Simple works," his team responded in unison, a mantra drilled into every UEDF soldier. The Thunderhawk's hull scraped against the colony's landing pad as they touched down. Through the viewport, Harrison could see Ravager troops turning to face this new threat, their cybernetic implants glowing with deadly purpose. Their weapons looked like something out of a science fiction novel, all sleek lines and pulsing energy chambers. Harrison chambered around in his M820. The sound of metal on metal echoed through the shuttle bay, a symphony of reliable, proven engineering. Let's show them how humans fight. Move out. The following minutes would become legendary in both human and Nexari military histories. The Ravagers, for all their advanced technology, had never encountered humans before. They expected energy shields, found kinetic barriers instead. They tried to hack combat systems, discovered hardened electronics and mechanical backups. Their energy weapons splashed against simple ablative armor designed to disperse heat. And the humans kept coming. Harrison's team moved with practiced precision, their primitive rifles spitting hypersonic rounds that ignored energy fields and punched through cybernetic enhancement. When a Ravager unit tried to adapt, they switched tactics, not technology. When communications were jammed, they used hand signals. When power systems were targeted, they went manual. From the colony's command center, they broadcast their battle footage to both the Earth Defense Headquarters and the watching Nexari delegation. Harrison imagined Ambassador Xylith's crystalline face shifting through colors as he watched humans systematically dismantle opponents whose technology should have made them vastly superior. The final numbers told the story: 3 Ravager ships neutralized, their crews defeated or fled, and the mining colony secured. Total casualties among Harrison's team: 0. Their primitive equipment had performed exactly as designed without a single critical failure. As they secured the last Ravager survivor for questioning, Lieutenant Park patched through a communication from Earth. Ambassador Xylith's voice came through, his translator struggling to convey what seemed to be a mix of shock and newfound respect. "Captain Harrison," the Nexari said slowly, "I believe we may have been hasty in our assessment of human military capabilities. Perhaps we have something to learn from your approach after all." Harrison allowed himself a small smile as he watched his team perform equipment checks, simple, methodical procedures that had served humanity well for centuries. "We'd be happy to discuss a knowledge exchange, Ambassador. After all, sometimes the best solution isn't the most advanced one." He clicked off the communication and turned to his team. They stood tall in their battle-scarred armor, their reliable weapons at the ready, living proof that humanity's path to the stars would be uniquely their own. "Good work, people," he said proudly. "Let's get this colony secured. Something tells me the galaxy's going to be looking at us differently from now on." And in the depths of space, word began to spread. The humans, those newcomers with their primitive technology, had done the impossible. They had proven that in the age of quantum computers and bioorganic weapons, there was still room for good old-fashioned human ingenuity. 2 weeks after the series incident, the Nexari High Command made their move. Their flagship, the Crystal Dominion, emerged from hyperspace near Phobos, Mars' largest moon. Its hull rippled like liquid mercury, bristling with weapons that could reduce mountains to ash. Behind it came a fleet of smaller vessels, each one a masterpiece of bioorganic engineering. In the observation deck of the United Earth Defense Force outpost on Phobos, Captain Marcus Harrison studied the alien armada through old-fashioned binoculars. Beside him, Lieutenant Park manipulated a holographic display showing the enemy fleet's formation. "They're not here for a friendly visit," Park said, nodding the combat-ready stance of the Nexari ships. "Looks like Ambassador Xylith's superiors didn't appreciate our little demonstration at Ceres." Harrison lowered his binoculars. "Wounded pride is dangerous. Specialist Patel, what's the status of our defense grid?" From his station at the command console, Raj Patel's fingers danced across physical keyboards. No neural interfaces or thought-controlled systems here. "Grid is operating at full capacity, sir. All 23 railgun platforms are charged and ready. Point defense turrets are tracking multiple targets." The comm system crackled to life with a transmission from the Crystal Dominion. Supreme Commander Nyxus of the Nexari appeared on their main screen, his crystalline form pulsing with deep red energies. Unlike Ambassador Xylith's diplomatic demeanor, Nyxus radiated pure military authority. "This is your only warning, humans," Nyxus announced, his translator giving his words an edge of steel. "The Phobos outpost sits on a critical hyperspace junction. Your primitive defenses are an insult to galactic security. Surrender the facility and we will ensure your forces are properly re-equipped." Harrison stepped forward, his weathered face reflected in the screen. "With all due respect, Commander, we'll stick with our own gear. This outpost remains under Earth jurisdiction." "Then you leave us no choice." Nyxus's form shifted to battle-ready colors. "We will demonstrate why the Nexari are the supreme military force in this sector. Your obsolete technology cannot hope to—" Harrison cut the transmission with a press of a physical button. "Sound General Quarters, all personnel to battle stations." The outpost came alive with activity. Unlike the sleek, automated facilities of most galactic powers, the human base was a warren of reinforced corridors and manual control stations. Soldiers ran to their posts while engineers performed last-minute equipment checks. Everything had a backup, and every backup had a manual override. "Nexari fleet is launching fighters," Park reported. "Bioorganic attack craft, at least 60 of them. Energy readings are off the charts." Harrison nodded to Patel. "Initiate defense pattern Delta. Let's show them why sometimes the old ways work best." The first wave of Nexari fighters swooped toward the outpost, their living metal forms shifting and flowing through space with impossible grace. They fired brilliant beams of plasma, expecting to slice through primitive human defenses. Instead, they met layers of overlapping defense systems. First came the railgun platforms, their simple magnetically accelerated projectiles requiring no fancy targeting computers. The hypervelocity rounds tore through energy shields designed to stop energy weapons, ripping into the living metal of the Nexari craft. "Multiple direct hits," Patel called out. 15 enemy fighters disabled, they're adjusting formation." The Nexari fighters regrouped, adapting their tactics. They launched salvos of quantum-guided missiles, weapons that could phase through normal matter. But Harrison had planned for this. "Activate the chaff screens," he ordered. Thousands of tiny metal fragments erupted from launchers around the outpost. No technology, no electronics, just clouds of reflective material that confused and disrupted the quantum guidance systems. Missiles spiraled wildly, detonating harmlessly in space. On the Crystal Dominion, Supreme Commander Nyxus watched in growing fury as his first attack wave faltered against defenses that should have been hopelessly outmatched. Impossible. Their technology is centuries behind ours. The second phase of the battle began as Nexari dropships approached the outpost's surface. They carried elite shock troops equipped with the finest battlesuits in the galaxy adaptive armor that could counter any weapon, neural-linked targeting systems that never missed. Harrison led the ground defense personally. His team had prepared killing grounds between the landing zones and the outpost's entrances. Simple trenches, reinforced barriers, and interlocking fields of fire warfare fundamentals that hadn't changed in centuries. "Remember," he told his troops over the comm, "they're relying on technology, we're relying on training." The Nexari shock troops emerged from their dropships like avenging angels, their armor glowing with power. They advanced confidently, scanning for electronic defenses to hack or energy shields to bypass. They found neither. Instead, they walked into precisely calculated crossfires from Mark VII battle suits using simple ballistic weapons. Hypervelocity rounds from M820 rifles punched through adaptive armor that had never been designed to stop physical projectiles. When the Nexari tried to return fire, they found their target tracking systems confused by heat-reflective panels and simple smoke grenades. "They're falling back," Park reported from his position. "Their armor's trying to adapt, but they can't handle multiple damage types simultaneously." Harrison watched through his rifle scope as the elite Nexari forces retreated in disarray. Their superior technology had become a liability too complex, too dependent on advanced systems that could be disrupted or overwhelmed. The battle for orbit continued as the Crystal Dominion itself moved into attack position. The massive flagship's weapons charged, preparing to demonstrate the full might of Nexari technology. "All personnel brace for impact," Harrison ordered. "Initiate Operation Thunderclap." Across Phobos's surface, hidden doors opened in the rocky terrain. From them rose massive rail cannons, not the elegant energy weapons favored by galactic powers, but huge electromagnetic accelerators built to human specifications. They had been charging for hours, storing power in simple capacitor banks. "Weapons hot," Patel announced. "Solution locked." "Fire!" The rail cannons erupted simultaneously. They launched not energy bolts or plasma streams, but solid projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The kinetic energy alone was devastating. The Crystal Dominion's advanced shields, designed to handle energy weapons, flickered and failed against the barrage of hypersonic metal. Its living metal hull crumpled under impacts it had never been designed to withstand. "Direct hits on multiple sections," Park reported, his voice steady. "Enemy flagship is venting atmosphere. Their secondary systems are failing." On their command screen, Supreme Commander Nyxus appeared again. His crystalline form had lost its proud glow, now flickering with the colors of shock and disbelief. "How?" he demanded. "Your technology, it's so basic, so primitive." Harrison stepped into view, his battle-scarred armor a sharp contrast to the Nexari's flowing crystal form. "Sometimes, Commander, the simple solution is the best solution. Your ships can outmaneuver us, your weapons can outpower us, but when everything goes wrong, our gear still works. That's not primitive, that's practical." The Nexari fleet retreated, leaving their damaged flagship limping through space. As they disappeared into hyperspace, Harrison turned to his team. Every piece of their equipment had performed exactly as designed, no frills, no unnecessary complexity, just humans doing what they did best, adapting, surviving, and overcoming. "Well done, everyone," he said, looking at the tired but proud faces of his crew. "I think we've given the galaxy something to think about." Lieutenant Park stepped up beside him, watching the last Nexari ship vanish from their sensors. "Sir, do you think they'll be back?" Harrison smiled slightly. "Oh, they'll be back, but next time they might not be so quick to laugh at our gear." News of the Phobos battle spread through the galaxy like wildfire. In the great crystalline chambers of the Galactic Council, representatives from 100 species debated what it meant. The Nexari, long considered the pinnacle of military advancement, had been defeated by what many considered a backwater species using outdated technology. On Titan, Saturn's largest moon, Captain Marcus Harrison stood in an underground bunker, watching tactical displays with representatives from 3 different alien species. The Volari, insectoid beings known for their strategic brilliance, clicked their mandibles thoughtfully. The Drachnid observers, with their scaled hides and ancient wisdom, studied the human facility with newfound respect. Even the energy-based Quintari had sent an emissary, their glowing form pulsing with interest. "The Nexari are mobilizing their entire battle fleet," the Volari strategist, Commander Kazith, reported. "Our intelligence suggests they plan to attack every human outpost simultaneously. They cannot accept their defeat at Phobos." Lieutenant Park brought up a holographic map of the solar system. "They'll hit Titan first. It's our biggest fuel processing center in the outer system. Without it, Earth's defenses would be significantly weakened," Harrison finished. He turned to their alien observers. "That's why we requested your presence. We want you to see what happens next." The Drachnid representative, Elder Morth, rumbled deeply. "You face the most advanced fleet in known space. Even if your methods proved effective twice, surely you cannot hope to defeat their entire armada." Harrison shared a knowing look with technical specialist Patel, who was monitoring various instrument panels, all using physical switches and analog backup systems. "Actually, we're counting on them bringing everything they have." The bunker's warning systems activated as massive hyperspace signatures appeared near Saturn. The Nexari fleet emerged like a storm of living metal, hundreds of ships, from massive dreadnoughts to swarms of fighters. At their center, the Crystal Dominion had been repaired and upgraded, its hull now reinforced against kinetic weapons. Supreme Commander Nyxus's transmission reached them moments later. His crystalline form blazed with confident colors. "Surrender now, humans. We have analyzed your tactics and adapted our technology. Your primitive weapons will find no weakness this time." Harrison's response was calm. "You're right, Commander. We couldn't possibly defeat your entire fleet with just our weapons." He nodded to Patel. "Initiate Operation Blacksmith." Across Titan's surface, hidden doors opened in the ice. But instead of weapon emplacements, they revealed massive arrays of simple radio transmitters. They activated simultaneously, flooding local space with electromagnetic noise across multiple frequencies. The effect was immediate and devastating. The Nexari fleet's bioorganic systems, dependent on complex quantum communications and neural networks, began to suffer cascading failures. Ships designed to function as single organisms suddenly found their components unable to coordinate. "Their basic systems are technological," Harrison explained to the stunned alien observers. "But everything advanced, everything that makes them superior relies on quantum entanglement and neural links. Disrupt those. And their greatest strengths become their greatest vulnerabilities," Kazith finished, mandibles clicking in appreciation. The Nexari ships struggled to maintain formation as their living metal hulls became confused and disoriented. Crystal Dominion, the most advanced of all, was also the most affected. Its attempts to adapt only made things worse as conflicting signals caused its neural networks to experience the equivalent of a seizure. But Harrison wasn't done. "Phase 2, he ordered. From behind Saturn's rings emerged a fleet of human ships. They weren't beautiful or elegant. They looked like what they were, warships built for function over form. Their hulls were thick, their weapons simple but massive. Most importantly, every critical system had a mechanical backup. "All ships execute Battle Plan Delta," Harrison commanded. "Remember your training, simple works." The human fleet engaged the disoriented Nexari armada with devastating efficiency. Rail guns and conventional missiles struck ships that could barely coordinate their defenses. When the Nexari tried to return fire, they found their targeting systems unable to lock onto vessels deliberately designed with minimal electronic signatures. From the bunker, the alien representatives watched in amazement. The Quintari emissaries' glow fluctuated rapidly. "They're not even using energy weapons or quantum torpedoes, just physics." "Kinetic energy never goes out of style," Harrison replied, watching as another Nexari dreadnought succumbed to sustained bombardment. "No fancy tech to fail, no complex systems to hack, just mass times acceleration." The battle in space was matched by the ground engagement as Nexari landing forces tried to take the fuel facilities by force. But here, too, they found themselves facing an enemy that had planned for everything to go wrong. Human defenders fought from hardened positions with weapons that needed no power sources beyond simple chemical propellants. When the Nexari deployed electronic warfare, they found their opponents using hand signals and radio backups. When they tried to hack defensive systems, they discovered most crucial equipment was purely mechanical. "Your species," Elder Morth observed, "fights as if expecting everything to fail." "We plan for failure," Harrison confirmed. "The Nexari build their weapons to work perfectly. We build ours to work even when they're broken." The tide turned decisively when the Crystal Dominion, frustrated by its inability to coordinate its advanced weapons, tried to launch a final, massive strike. The ship's conflicting systems overloaded, causing a cascade of failures throughout its neural network. The mighty flagship, pride of the Nexari fleet, drifted powerless in space. Supreme Commander Nyxus's final transmission showed his crystalline form clouded with the colors of defeat. "How? We improved everything. We made our technology even more advanced." "That was your mistake," Harrison replied. "You tried to solve your problems by adding complexity. We solved ours by embracing simplicity." As the Nexari fleet retreated in disarray, the alien observers huddled in deep discussion. The implications were clear. Humanity had not just defeated the most advanced military force in known space. They had done it by refusing to play the same game. "Your victory will change the balance of power in the galaxy," Kazith predicted. "Others will seek to understand your methods." Harrison watched the tactical displays as human ships began rescue operations for damaged Nexari vessels. Even in victory, practicality prevailed. "We're happy to teach," he said. "Lesson 1, sometimes the best solution is the most basic one." The Drachnid elder made a sound like grinding stones, their version of laughter. "The Nexari sought to humiliate you by calling your technology primitive. Instead, you humbled them by proving that advancement does not always mean improvement." As the alien representatives departed to report to their respective governments, Harrison stood with his team, watching Saturn's rings shimmer through the bunker's observation window. They had won not by matching the Nexari's technological superiority, but by making that very superiority a weakness. "Sir," Lieutenant Park said quietly, "do you think they'll finally understand?" Harrison smiled slightly. "If they don't, we'll be happy to demonstrate again. After all, practice makes perfect." 3 months after the Battle of Titan, Captain Marcus Harrison found himself aboard the Galactic Council's central station, a massive structure of crystalline spires and quantum-locked corridors floating in neutral space. But this time, he wasn't there as an observer or a supplicant. He was there as an instructor. Representatives from 24 spacefaring races filled the converted assembly chamber, now transformed into what humans would recognize as a classic military classroom. Even a small group of young Nexari officers sat in the back, their crystalline forms dimmed with humility. "The fundamental principle of human military doctrine is simple," Harrison explained, standing before a display showing the schematics of a standard Mark VII combat suit. "Plan for failure. Expect everything to go wrong. Build accordingly." Lieutenant Park demonstrated by partially disassembling his rifle. "This weapon has no neural interface, no quantum targeting, no AI assistance, but it will fire after being submerged in water, exposed to vacuum, or dropped from orbit. When everything else fails, it works." The assembled aliens watched with intense interest. A Volari general raised a clawed appendage. "But surely this limits your capabilities. Without advanced systems, how can you compete with more sophisticated weapons?" Harrison smiled. "Technical specialist Patel, would you show them?" Patel stepped forward, carrying what looked like a simple metal box. "This is a standard UEDF electromagnetic pulse generator. Nothing special, just coiled wire and capacitors. But," he activated it. Immediately, half the aliens' personal devices stopped working. Their quantum tablets flickered and died. Neural interfaces went dark, but the human equipment continued functioning without interruption. "Technology is a tool," Harrison continued as the aliens recovered their devices. "Not a crutch. Every piece of advanced equipment is a potential point of failure, so we ask ourselves, do we really need it?" The lesson was interrupted by an urgent communication. A holographic projection appeared in the center of the room, showing a massive fleet of unknown vessels approaching Council space. Their design was organic, almost viral in appearance, and they weren't responding to any attempts at communication. "The swarm," an elder Drachnid rumbled. "They emerge from deep space every few centuries, consuming everything in their path. Our most advanced weapons barely slow them down." Harrison studied the tactical display, noting the way the alien ships moved as a single organism. "They're connected somehow, a neural network. A quantum-entangled hive mind," one of the Quintari scientists explained, their energy form pulsing with concern. "Far more sophisticated than even Nexari technology. They adapt to any weapon used against them, becoming immune to its effects." Harrison exchanged looks with his team. "They adapt to energy weapons, advanced technology." "Of course," the Quintari replied. "Their ability to evolve their defenses is unmatched. Each attack makes them stronger." "But what about something simple?" Harrison asked. Lieutenant Park, contact Earth. Tell them we need everything from Operation Blacksmith plus something new. Specialist Patel, get me the specs on those Hive ships. I want to know their basic structure. The next few days were a flurry of activity. As the swarm approached, the various alien races prepared their most advanced weapons: quantum disruptors, dark energy projectors, temporal distortion beams. But in their midst, human engineers were building something very different. "You can't be serious," Supreme Commander Nyxus said, watching human ships deploy what looked like primitive satellites around key defensive positions. His color had shifted to show skepticism, but there was a hint of curiosity in his tone. "These are the same devices you used against us." "With some modifications," Harrison confirmed. "The swarm is connected by quantum entanglement. Fine, let's give them some old-fashioned noise to deal with." When the swarm arrived, it came like a tide of living darkness. The first line of defense, a network of automated quantum weapon platforms, fired devastating beams of pure energy. The swarm absorbed the attacks, adapted, and pressed forward stronger than before. The second line, consisting of temporal weapons deployed by the Drachnid, briefly seemed effective. But within minutes, the swarm had evolved to exist in multiple timeframes simultaneously. Then they reached the human defense line. "All units," Harrison commanded from the Council's central command center, "initiate Operation Static." The modified electromagnetic arrays activated, flooding space with precisely calculated interference patterns. Not advanced enough to be adapted to, not complex enough to be evolved against just raw electromagnetic noise across all frequencies. The effect on the swarm was immediate and catastrophic. Ships that relied on perfect coordination through their quantum-entangled network suddenly found themselves isolated and confused. The hive mind, accustomed to processing information at quantum speeds, was overwhelmed by simple, crude static. "Now," Harrison ordered, "show them what humanity does best." Human ships moved in, launching salvos of kinetic weapons, simple masses of metal accelerated to incredible speeds. The swarm, for all its ability to adapt to energy weapons and temporal attacks, found itself being torn apart by what amounted to very fast rocks. "That's the problem," Harrison explained, watching as more human ships arrived, carrying what looked like massive versions of ancient naval cannons. "You kept trying to overcome their adaptability with more complex weapons. We went the other way." The battle raged for hours, but the outcome was never in doubt. The swarm, denied its greatest strength, its interconnected intelligence, and faced with weapons too simple to adapt to, began to break apart. Individual ships, cut off from the hive mind, fell easy prey to concentrated fire from the combined fleet. As the last swarm ships retreated into deep space, the alien representatives gathered around Harrison and his team. The mood was different now, no more skepticism, no more condescension. "Your people," the Drachnid elder said slowly, "have achieved what our civilizations could not. With technology we would have considered obsolete." Harrison looked around the command center, where human engineers were already helping alien technicians modify their equipment with manual backups and simple redundancies. Technology doesn't have to be advanced to be effective. Sometimes, the old ways are the best ways. Supreme Commander Nyxus approached, his crystalline form showing colors of deep respect. "We mocked your methods, called them primitive, but now I understand. Your strength lies not in the sophistication of your weapons, but in the wisdom to know when sophistication becomes a weakness." As the aliens dispersed to begin implementing lessons learned from the battle, Lieutenant Park turned to Harrison. "Sir, do you think they finally understand why we do things our way?" Harrison watched as a young Nexari officer carefully disassembled her quantum rifle, studying how to add mechanical backup systems. "They're learning. Sometimes the best way to teach is to lead by example." The galaxy was changing. Humanity had proven that progress didn't always mean more complexity, that sometimes the most advanced solution was the simplest one. And as their influence spread, other races began to rediscover the value of reliability over sophistication, of durability over elegance. The age of human pragmatism had begun. 1 year after the defeat of the swarm, the Galactic Council chamber had changed dramatically. Gone were the purely crystalline structures and quantum-linked interfaces. In their place stood a hybrid of technologies, advanced systems backed by simple, reliable alternatives. It was a physical representation of humanity's growing influence on galactic civilization. Captain Marcus Harrison, recently promoted to admiral, stood before the assembled representatives of over 30 spacefaring races. The agenda today was something that would have been unthinkable just a year ago: the establishment of the Joint Galactic Defense Force, with humanity playing a leading role in its development. "The galaxy is changing," Harrison began, his voice carrying through the chamber's traditional acoustic design, no electronics needed. "Not because we humans brought superior technology, but because we remembered something many had forgotten: the value of simplicity." Among the delegates, Supreme Commander Nyxus of the Nexari sat alongside Volari strategist Kazith and Elder Morth of the Drachnid. Their presence, once rivals, now allies, symbolized the new era of cooperation. Lieutenant Park, now Colonel Park, brought up a holographic display showing a new class of warship. Its design represented a merger of philosophies: Nexari living metal combined with human redundant systems, Volari tactical computers backed by manual controls, Drachnid energy weapons supplemented by traditional kinetic armaments. "The Defender class," Harrison explained. "The first ship designed and built by our combined technologies and experiences, but more importantly, the first to fully embrace our new doctrine: advanced doesn't always mean better." The chamber's attention shifted as Technical Director Patel, formerly Specialist, demonstrated the ship's capabilities. "Every system has a backup. Every backup has a manual override. It can take massive damage and keep fighting. Most importantly, it can operate at reduced capacity even if every advanced system fails." The assembled delegates murmured in approval. They had learned their lessons well over the past year. The swarm's defeat had proven that sophistication could be a weakness and simplicity could be strength. A young Nexari officer stepped forward, one of many who had trained under human instructors. Her crystalline form showed the colors of confidence tempered by humility. "Admiral Harrison, we've received reports of unusual activity in the Outer Rim, unknown ships with technology beyond anything we've seen." Harrison nodded unsurprised. The galaxy was vast and there would always be new challenges. "Show us." The tactical display shifted to show vessels that seemed to bend reality itself. They moved without apparent propulsion, their hulls existing in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Several alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. This was the kind of advanced technology that used to make them feel inferior. But Harrison smiled. "Look closer," he said. "What do you see?" Colonel Park pointed to specific features of the alien ships. "Their technology is incredibly advanced, but their basic structure is still bound by physics. They still need to maintain structural integrity. They still need to manage heat. They still need to see where they're going." "Exactly," Harrison confirmed. "No matter how advanced they are, they can't break the fundamental laws of the universe, and that means—" "They can be fought," Supreme Commander Nyxus finished, his crystalline form glowing with understanding. "Not with even more advanced technology, but with simple principles applied intelligently." The chamber erupted in discussion as military leaders and technical experts began formulating strategies. But they weren't planning to build superweapons or develop counter-technologies. Instead, they focused on basic principles: electromagnetic interference, kinetic impacts, radiation shielding. The lessons of the past year had taken root. Harrison watched with pride as representatives from various races worked together, combining their knowledge in new ways. The Volari contributed their strategic genius, now tempered by an appreciation for simplicity. The Nexari offered their advanced materials science, but with an eye toward durability rather than complexity. The Drachnid brought their ancient wisdom, helping to identify which technologies were truly necessary and which were merely impressive. "It's remarkable," Elder Morth rumbled, approaching Harrison. "A year ago, such ships would have caused panic. Now our first response is to look for basic solutions. That's the real victory, Harrison replied. Not defeating the Nexari fleet or the swarm, but changing how the galaxy thinks about technology and warfare. Colonel Park joined them, carrying a simple metal compass, a gift from a young Quintari engineer who had learned to appreciate non-electronic navigation tools. Sir, do you ever wonder if we've gone too far the other way? If we're holding back progress? Harrison shook his head. Progress isn't just about making things more advanced. It's about making them better. Sometimes that means adding complexity, but often it means stripping it away to find what really matters. The chamber's attention returned to the tactical display as more data came in about the mysterious ships. But now, instead of fear or awe, the prevailing mood was one of methodical analysis. Representatives from different races worked together, applying their combined philosophy of practical innovation. Supreme Commander Nyxis, watching the proceedings, turned to Harrison. You humans didn't just change how we fight, you changed how we think. No, Harrison corrected him. We reminded you of something you already knew but had forgotten. The most elegant solution is usually the simplest one. As the session concluded, Harrison stood at the chamber's observation window, looking out at the combined fleet in orbit. Ships of all races displayed their new hybrid designs, advanced technology, tempered by practical engineering. Each vessel represented not just military power, but a new way of thinking about progress and innovation. Colonel Park joined him at the window. What do you think the history books will say about all this? Harrison watched as a new Defender-class ship maneuvered into formation, its design a perfect blend of sophistication and simplicity. They'll say that humanity didn't conquer the galaxy with superior technology. We changed it by remembering that sometimes the old ways are the best ways. The galaxy had indeed changed. The races that once laughed at human, primitive technology now sent their best and brightest to Earth to study engineering principles that had stood the test of time. The Nexari still built beautiful ships of living metal, but now they included manual backups and mechanical redundancies. The Volari integrated simple, reliable systems into their complex strategies. And somewhere out in space, new challenges waited new enemies, new technologies, new threats to face. But now the galaxy would face them together, armed not just with advanced technology, but with the wisdom to know when not to use it. The age of practical innovation had begun, and humanity had led the way not by pushing forward, but by remembering what lay behind. In the end, that was their greatest contribution to galactic civilization, not the technology they brought, but the wisdom they remembered.